The period of the Judges, God's people unfaithful to him. God promised the land of Canaan to the people of Israel, but he told them to conquer the sinful people living in it and take the land from them. While Joshua lived, they did that. However, following his death, they began taking on the ways of the people of Canaan, even worshiping their idols. Disobedience to God is sin, and there are consequences for sin. When they went out to conquer, they were defeated. The people needed a leader to replace Joshua. God chose to appoint judges. The first of these judges was Othniel, who was Caleb's brother. When the people went to war, they were victorious and there was peace in the land until Othniel died. Othniel was the first of 12 judges or leaders of the people. After the death of each one, the people were more and more disobedient to God. Yet he continued to be merciful to appoint another judge to lead them. The judges in order were Othniel, Ehud, Shamgar, Deborah, Gideon, Tola, Jair, Jephthah, Ibzan, Elon, Abdon, and Samson. We will discuss the 5 that are highlighted here. One of these judges was a woman, Deborah. Sisera was the commander of his Canaanite king's army, who had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years, and they cried to the Lord for help. Judges 4:1. Deborah's military general was Barak. Under their leadership, Sisera was put to death, and there was peace in the land. Judges 5 is the Song of Deborah, which was sung on the occasion of victory, a song of praise to God. The nation of Midian was often at odds with Israel, and after 40 years of peace, the Midianites became so oppressive that Israelites were hiding to avoid them. God allowed this because the Israelites continued to slip back into sin after the death of each judge. However, after 7 years of oppression, they cried out to God for relief, and he raised up another judge or leader, who was Gideon. Gideon himself was hiding from the Midianites when God sent his angel, who appeared to Gideon saying, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand." From Judges 6:12 and 14. Gideon could not believe what he was hearing, and he needed a sign. God cooperated with his test, and Gideon obeyed. He tore down the gods of the Midianites as God commanded. The people of Midian, including some Israelites, were angry with him. Gideon had 32,000 men, from which he chose 300 for his army. Each man was given a trumpet and a torch. They surrounded the Midianite camp during the night, and holding the torch in one hand and the trumpet in the other, they shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon," and blew their trumpets. The Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. Judges 7:22. The Midianites were defeated and the leaders of their army were captured, all in the strength of God and the obedience of Gideon. Jephthah was rejected by his brothers and driven away from his family and his country through no fault of his own. He was treated unjustly by the people around him, but God called him to use his potential to help his people. He was a natural leader, and many were drawn to him in his new country of Tob. When the Ammonites threatened the people of Israel with war, the very people who had rejected Jephthah came to him, asking him to lead them against Ammon. He had them promise that whoever came to meet him when he returned in triumph would be sacrificed to the Lord. A rash vow. The one who greeted him was his own daughter. Following the death of each judge, the people forgot God until they were again mistreated and threatened. The 12th and last judge was Samson, who had great strength. However, he did not use it for good. Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah. The Philistines wanted to know the source of his strength and asked Delilah to learn it and tell them. He ultimately told her, and the Philistines captured him and put out his eyes. However, when they brought him into their temple to celebrate, Samson prayed to God for his special strength to be renewed in order to bring down the temple on them as he pushed the pillars supporting it. Many Philistine rulers and people were killed. During the time of the judges, there was a famine. Elimelech and Naomi and their 2 sons left Bethlehem to live in Moab, where there was food. The sons married Moabite women. All 3 of the women were later widowed, and Naomi heard that there was food in Israel and determined to return to Bethlehem. She encouraged her daughters-in-law to go back to their families. Ruth, one of the daughters-in-law, wanted to go with Naomi, saying, "Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people, and your God my God," as recorded in Ruth 1:16. In Bethlehem, Ruth collected leftover grain from the barley fields belonging to Boaz. He was a relative of Naomi and a kinsman redeemer who married Ruth. They later had a son who was named Obed. Obed's son was Jesse, whose son was David, who became king of Israel, the man after God's own heart, as he is described in Acts 13:22. David was a forerunner of Jesus, the Christ.